First, I would like for everyone to give a round of applause for yourself for coming out tonight. So everyone clap it up. So my name is Gregory St. Fort. I'm the executive director of 100state. Raise your hand if you heard of 100state. Oh, we're in the building. Awesome. So for those who do not know, 100state is a co-working community. We're right on 30 West Mifflin. We're a place for people to work on their ideas. So different entrepreneurs, artists, freelancers come together and just work on projects, create teams, and collaborate. And we also partner up with companies like organizations like the CapTimes to create discussions on leadership like tonight. So we're really excited about getting into this conversation with everything going on in the country. I think it's really important to really get into conversation and how do we get more people into leadership, entrepreneurship, job opportunities, and so on. We've been working a lot on these initiatives. We've had some really awesome entrepreneurs who are part of 100state and became members. If you're a member of 100state, could you raise your hand? So 100state members are here and all really do awesome things in creating companies and opportunities. We've created really awesome partnerships with organizations like Latino Chamber of Commerce. Kaleem does a really great job with us, and everyone on the panel are really awesome partners in the community that help us with a lot of our initiatives. We've been excited to say that we're growing our space, and in January we're moving to a new location on 316 West Washington. So, yeah. And we're moving from 6,500 to 11,000 square feet. So it's a really awesome opportunities for entrepreneurs of all backgrounds to kind of get into the commerce and opportunities to be a leader and work with other people and to work on your ideas. An example of what we've worked on so far, so we're working with the Latino Chamber of Commerce and creating a pipeline for someone from the Latino community to make sure that they have a private office downtown Madison at 100state. So these are really exciting things that we're working on with different partners, and we want to continue to work on that. So that's a big part of what we're doing tonight is kind of continuously developing pipelines and networks and getting people in the room to get in this discussion of different opportunities that you may not know exist, but they are available. Also, keep in mind, so this is just part one. So there's going to be more of these discussions that we're going to do regarding creating racially diverse leadership, and we want all of you to continue to be engaged and keep up with what's going on and different communications that we're going to send out with the CapTimes so that we can continue developing leadership and equity in Madison. So I'm going to pass it on to Chris, and he's going to talk more about what's going on.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Chris Murphy. I'm the managing editor of the CapTimes, and I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight for this talk about fostering more leaders of color in Madison. This is a great crowd, very impressive. We've really been looking forward to this. And in just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Amber Walker, to introduce the panel. But I want to take just 1 minute to say a little bit about CapTimes Talks. We launched these about a year ago as a new way to connect with readers, and we've really been really pleased with the response from folks like you. We're also really pleased to have a sponsor in Heartland Credit Union, and frankly, it's through their help that we're able to do things like this, so please give them a round of applause. And the talks, too, have been a great way for us to be part of the community at 100state. It was about a year ago that we became organizational sponsors there, and I can't say enough about how great it's been to be part of that community. I think that this is the 4th talk that we've done with Greg and his folks there, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more in the future. 2 more thank yous I want to give. One tonight is to Madison Public Library for hosting us here. This is one of the really great public spaces in Madison. Hope you enjoy it. And also want to make sure you knew that, yes, please do. I want to make sure you knew that the food tonight was from a restaurant called La Taguara, which is Venezuelan, and it is local. They have two spots on one on East Wash and one on East Johnson. So I hope you had a chance to enjoy that. Yes. About tonight, Amber has questions prepared for the panel, but there are ways that you can participate too. If you're on Twitter, you can tweet questions at CapTimes or using the CT Leaders of Color hashtag, and I'll see those questions and can bring them up to the front during the talk. Or there are also note cards at all the chairs here, and you can write down a question, and I'll be around in about a half an hour to pick those up, bring those questions up. I can't promise we'll get them all in. We've got a lot to do tonight, but we'll do our best. After the panel discussion portion of the event's over, Carlos from 100state will be up here to give instructions about moving on to the brainstorm portion of it for those of you who are staying. So, without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Amber Walker, who covers K-12 education for us at the CapTimes. Please give her a warm welcome.
Once again, thank you all for coming out. I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce our panelists. First, we have Barbara Harrington-McKinney, is a St. Louis native who moved to Madison in 2005. She currently serves as the Madison Common Council District 1 Alder, representing Madison's West Side. McKinney sees mentoring as a key element to creating a pipeline of diverse leadership. Next, we have Israel Lopez. He's a business attorney and graduate of UW Law School. He founded the Chins Up Foundation, an IT nonprofit that matches college student athletes with youth in a letter exchange program. Sagashus Levingston is the founder of Infamous Mothers and recently raised over $25,000 to print a coffee table book that showcases their stories and triumphs. Sagashus seeks to problematize the narrative of what leadership stereotypically looks like by providing a space for people who are often marginalized or silenced. Next, we have Kaleem Caire. He's a Madison native who opened One City Early Learning Center blocks from his childhood home. One City's mission is to prepare young children for success in school and life and ensure that they enter grade school reading ready. And finally, we have Myra Medrano. She's the president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce and the Business Community Service Manager for Madison Gas and Electric. Myra aims to create an environment where Latino leaders can feel confident and empowered to run any organization in the city and beyond. All right, so we're going to jump right into the questions here. My first question for all the panelists is, what was your personal path to leadership, and in what ways were you fostered as a leader?
I guess I could kick off the question. I think so my parents are immigrants, and they, my dad only went to first grade, and my mom only went to fourth grade. So they, as far as mentoring for your career, as far as mentoring to figure out like what your role should be in your work life, was very difficult because they were pretty much saying you just have to find a job, right? You just have to find a job. And I wanted more than that. I wanted more than just having money to pay my bills. I wanted to feel that I was making a difference, that I was impacting my community, and that I was helping the generation that helped my parents, get here. So a lot of people, there's a lot of naysayers. A lot of people would say, well, you probably don't want to go that route because that's uncharted territory for you. But I've had a lot of mentors. I've had a lot of people who support me and have been very instrumental in telling me, yeah, you can achieve that. This is what you need to do. Here's, steps 1, 2, and 3. So it's more than just, saying you can do anything that you want. It's actually implementing the plan, and I think that's very important to talk to people that have been there and that understand that there are some other challenges that can be very, evident, but it takes someone to tell you these are the steps. And it's like actually visiting a campus, like that's step 1, right, after high school. So it's easy as that, but for someone who just doesn't know, it's very difficult. So I think it's just connecting to the right people.
I'll jump on that too. So for me, I want to spread this message that it starts with yourself. And by that I mean, I got to law school, I educated myself, I networked, I met people, as many people as I possibly can. I showed that I was really, really hungry. And what that resulted in was me finding amazing mentors. So you're right, mentors, people that were willing to coach me, but it started with me, right? I was willing to put the work in. And as a business attorney here in this market, I just got the statistics back from the Wisconsin State Bar. There are 22 business attorneys of color, black and Latino business attorneys in the entire state. 3 in this market, all right? So if you're a young professional right now and you think that affirmative action exists in corporate America, it doesn't, okay? It doesn't. you're not going to get hired unless you have the skill set, unless you work hard, unless you show results, unless you have accomplishments, and you say, look, what I'm capable of. Now, in getting the mentors, for me, I was proactive with that. I sought people that I admired. My first mentor, I'm really blessed, by the way. Both of them are here, so I'm going to give them a quick shout-out. My first mentor, I sought someone that looked nothing like me, okay? She is an incredibly talented attorney. She's a successful white woman, right? Grew up different than me, and she's so smart. I saw a presentation she was giving. I was like, I want to have that skill set. I want to be like her. So I met her. I shook her hand. I said, can we go to lunch? I followed up. I showed her how hungry I am. And for the last 2 years, you know, geez, it might be more than that now. She has done so much for me in many different ways. So quickly, Lighty Hudson, can you stand up for me quickly? And so as a young, you know, Puerto Rican individual, having someone like that coaching me and pushing me to be great and giving me insight that I honestly didn't have was amazing. My second mentor is someone that understands the grind, understands some of the difficulties that I went through, and that's Dr. Nestor Rodriguez. He grew up in, you know, South Central L.A. And experienced what it's like to you know, he's a cosmetic physician, experienced what it's like for people to look right through you. You know, you're incredibly talented. He went to Yale, right? Dude, incredibly educated, intelligent individual, but he's always had to fight. He's always had to say, trust me, I'm capable. I'm a really smart guy. And he knows what it's like for people to be like, all right, you know? So having that insight, having that mentoring, I'll get off the mic, but please, can you stand up quickly for me? So mentoring and proactively seeking mentoring.
Black folks, we don't know how to. We go first. It is green. Hello? All right. I was taught to let the ladies go first, so, right? But yeah, so my path to mentorship, I tell people all the time that, you know, my sister Carmen, she's actually my cousin, but we grew up like sister and brother. Her mom raised me, so I tell people that my path to leadership started when my aunt took me in when I was 2 years old. You know, mentorship is really about making a tremendous investment in someone, and hopefully someone that you'll continue to stay with. And now that you can't always give that person something, but it's the people you help put them around. It's the advice you give them. It's what they see in you and how they follow you. That makes up the totality of the experience of a mentor. But as I got older, you know, when I was younger, I was a little bit more arrogant at one point. As an athlete, I was good, and I carried that into the military. I had success. And it was probably around my late 20s, early 30s when I started to realize just how important all of these people were in helping to shape and mold me. So I tell people I'm really the product of 10,000 hands. I have had so many people, peers, people who've worked for me, people I've worked for, give me advice, provide me direction. I'm, you know, learning things from them. I got Keitra sitting in front of me. There's no one more organized than her. And you know I got problems with that. So she said yes. So, I mean, but I didn't learn as much from her, but I understood that she was someone that I could count on, that could help me look better and be better as a leader. So, you know, there are mentors out there, and they're not always the ones who just hold your hand. There are those individuals that have subtle impacts on you, and I've just had so many people like that in my life.
So I was taking my time on this one because I knew that my answer was going to be a little different. I'm like, oh, they're going to be ready for this. So my path to leadership looked very different from other people's. I think the biggest goal I ever had in life was to become my goal was to become a construction worker. I did not want children. I absolutely did not like children. I wanted a boyfriend that drank beer and played video games all day. Like, I had no ambitions other than being a construction worker. And that was because I wanted to stand on the scaffold and whistle at the men, right? So those were my goals. But so I'm like, oh, is this, you know, because if I'm anything, I'm transparent. So, but what I've never liked bullies. I'm by nature an introvert. I spend all my time in my room studying. I'm really a loner, but I've never liked the idea of other people being picked on, and so leadership for me began with watching other kids get picked on and fighting for those kids. It also began with mothers in my community who would say things like, uneducated black women with a lot of kids who would say things like, never accept no from someone who's not authorized to tell you no, right? So that type of leadership. And as time went on, what led me to Madison, people will always believe it was coming here for a master's and a PhD, and that's the sexy story. But what really got me to Madison was I got into a fight and I had to leave Chicago. And but I was never intending on staying. I was going to let the fight cool off. The master's program was the easy way out of Chicago. And then I fell in love with the research because I found that in a space that was supposed to be about women, and I found that in feminism, black mothers' voices weren't present, and that for me was another form of bullying and silencing, and so I fell in love with the work, and that's what kept me in Madison. So I did not, and people would say things like, you have a right to be here, and I had never heard that before. So what got me here and what kept me here was not, they weren't the same things. I've always had extraordinary mentors and people in my life, but those weren't my goals. My goals were to live a very quiet life after a day at the construction site and then to go home with no kids. And now I have 6, so.
I chose to go last purposely because obviously I'm the elder at the end of the table, and I didn't know about mentoring. I was born in the South, and I remembered the signs that said colored and white only. I was introduced to a culture that said you were not good enough, and I believed that. And so as I moved through life, I thought I was not good enough because no one told me that I was. And I got married, got divorced, had a child, but there was something in my belly that I could not even understand what that was. And I was very purposeful to say that I was going to put my child in the center of everything that I did not have. So I lived vicariously through him. I wanted to make sure he went to the best schools. I wanted to make sure he was challenged. I wanted to make sure that he made it, and I could tell him that you could be anything that you want to be. And he believed that. But guess what? No one told me that. And I missed out on that. But there was such a hunger, and I didn't understand it because I didn't know what mentoring was. I go to my church, and I joined what was called the Missionary Society, and the elders said that, I want you to be vice president. I go, I just became a member. What do you mean, vice president? I don't know anything about that. And they said, just step into the role. We'll be there. We'll help you. I didn't know that was mentoring. And they absolutely took me by the hand and led me all the way through. I didn't know that that was mentoring. Got my first job. The only black secretary in a pool, a sea of white folks from the South. And you could tell I spoke, the language, the blackies. And I met a young woman, and she said, Barbara, she said, you are the only black person that I've really ever met. There was one black athlete in her school, and we became friends. I trusted her. She trusted me. And she says, I'm going to lead you through this maze, this white sea-ness. I didn't know about mentoring, but she took me by the hand. And she said, you know what? I'm going to give you a tape recorder. What are you going to give me a tape recorder for? And she said, just talk into the tape recorder and listen to yourself. I didn't know she was mentoring me, but she was. And I would talk into the tape recorder, and I sharpened my language. That was mentoring. She was stoking the pipeline. I didn't know that, but that was mentoring. But there was always a fire in my belly that I couldn't understand. But I had people all through my life to say, you can do this. I go, no, I'm quiet. Right? I really am an introvert. But there was just a message to be told, and no one was telling it. I'd been on a hard journey, and people didn't understand the journey. But I realized my role was to tell the story. My role is to say to people is that you can make it, regardless of what people tell you, regardless of how difficult it gets. If there is a fire in your belly, you act on it. And so my pathway has been mentors, but I didn't know that they were mentors. There were people that cared enough to say, you can be whatever you choose to be. And I started to believe that. And I started to tell myself that. So my path to leadership was when I started throwing off the old isms that folks put on you and the labels that people put on you. And when I stopped doing that, I started believing that I can make a difference. So that's my path to leadership.
This question is also for all the panelists. How can we work as a city and as leaders to cultivate a new model of leadership that takes into consideration the privilege of leadership? So you have this idea of a leader in your head. How do you make space for folks who don't necessarily fit that mold? And to borrow a quote from Eric Upchurch, how can you bring people to the table versus bringing the table to people?
I'll go. See what I mean? I'll go. When I'm in a room and when I'm in a meeting, I look for who's at the table, who's not at the table, and who should be at the table. When I'm in the community, I ask, who do I see, who I don't see, and who I should be seeing. That's the outreach that I do. And the reason I can fit very comfortably in this space is that I know the two Madisons. My son was Mike McKinney, and he introduced me to the generosity of Madison, Wisconsin. I went to places, and I was like, wow, is this what you do for a living, right? And then I worked at Madison Area Urban Ministry with men and women coming out of prison, going inside the institutions, and for them coming back and said, Madison is not a good place for me. And so the uniqueness is that I've learned how to sit in the middle. And when I sit in the middle, I can say to some folks is that this person should be at the table. And when I bring them to the table, I do as I know mentors did me, said, when you get to the table, this is what you're going to find. This is how you're going to act. This is how you stay at the table. Sometimes you have to hold their hands until they start believing in themselves. And so that's my form of mentoring, is because I have always recognized how to mentor. I just didn't know how to believe in myself. So when I see young people, and when you see me, I say, you can be anything that you can be, anything that you want to be. And so I think that that's how you bring folks along, and you keep telling them that, and keep telling them that, until they start believing it themselves.
So I think the model of leadership that I try to cultivate is the one that I don't try to bring people to me. I literally go to people. And I go to people that folks don't normally think about going to. So I give you an example, a story. Not too long ago, I was working with an organization where I go to the houses of the women that I work with. There are 3 women in the house, and one of the women, before I showed up, had just got into a fight with her boyfriend. She hit him, he hit her, they disappeared. And in the middle of our session, she shows back up. Her and his boyfriend are arguing back and forth on the phone. Yet in the middle of these arguments, she's filling out all the paperwork, the questions. Like I asked the questions on the one of the worksheets is, what is your superpower? What is your kryptonite? Who do you see yourself being in 5 years? In the middle of all of this fight, she's answering these questions. And that's the person I want on my team. The person who in the middle of a fight can still show up. So those are the people that I look to cultivate. People would overlook her because she had come from drug use. She was selling her body. And people would often say, she's not respectable, she doesn't fit the bill, blah, blah, blah. And when I started in the middle of our session, I didn't know what her particular history was. I was able to tell her that I had come from 4 generations of sex workers, and was telling, these women my family history and about why it's important for me to be there in front of them. And this woman, I can see the torment. I can see the fight that she's trying to keep herself off the street. And she's trying to believe what I'm telling her. But she can believe what I'm telling her because she had 5 kids and I had 6, right? So I'm like, I still got you beat. And I have more baby daddies than you. Like anything that you can throw at me, I got you beat. And that let her know that the impossible was possible. So I try to cultivate leadership by going to the people that we readily dismiss. I think with men in prison, there's so many programs out there that people are starting to believe that these men can be. We see the difference they can make. But we often throw mothers away. We'll take their children. We'll take first-generation children and we'll do this. But when I looked at that woman, I said, if I invest my energy into her, she's going to invest her energy into 5, right? So I get the biggest bang for my time by investing in women like me. When people invested in me and imagined me as someone who can make a difference, then my daughter started participating in national programs to close the achievement gap, and she's 16. Then my next daughter became a cellist. And so then what ended up happening was investing in me, people invested in 6. And so the people that we often dismiss and throw away, we don't realize that they're some of our biggest investments. And I think the other thing is there's nothing more, for me, there was nothing more urgent than, I had come from a background where people were dying every day. And so with me coming from that background, when I started the PhD route, I had to choose. Do I want to go to school and finish and become a professor and never engage folks that look like me or have backgrounds like mine? Or do I accept the fact that I come from a background where every day in my mind there's a sniper on the roof? Every day in my mind when I come outside, there's a sense of urgency. And it's going to probably be the rest of my life because that's what I grew up in. And so I find women who have that same sniper on the roof and that urgency to make a difference, but we often overlook them. And I think I would always want an urgent leader than a complacent one, right? And so I cultivate folks, and I look to cultivate folks and support them, that type of population.
So, I don't really believe in bringing tables to people, because I believe that people stick around longer when they come by themselves. So what I do, I will get behind people if I think that I can be of assistance to them to help them move a little bit further. I will, we just had this thing where these students raised the issue about the noose on campus, and I felt, well, I was called by SOUP, the athletic department. This is really the athletic department and the students' issue I felt to solve. So I came to the table and just said a few things that I felt could bring them closer together so that the students' leadership could be recognized by the athletic department, because I knew I had some gravitas with them. But I also will piss people off intentionally, literally, to get them to move. The charter school is the greatest example of that in Madison. I didn't do that intentionally to upset people, but it happened in two ways. And I'm doing this again now. I do it all the time, actually. I started at the Urban League. We had a small board, good group of people, but when I got to my first 4 or 5 board meetings, it took us 30 to 45 minutes into those board meetings to get quorum. And I thought, man, I told y'all in the interview who you were getting, I move. So this isn't going to be a slow motion game. So I got data from the school district that said how terrible our kids were doing. I made a 9-page data request. I wanted everything about the evaluations of their programs. I found out 2 things. They had a lot of data, but it took them a long time to get it to me. It shouldn't have taken that long. And 2, they had no evaluations on any programs that they were funding, period. So they were saying all these things were great, but no evaluation to back it up. So I said, you know what? I called Susan Trawler from the CapTimes. I told Susan, I said, you know what? I'm going to go out on the steps of this West High School, my alma mater, and announce that we're doing a charter school for boys. And I'll be out there in 2 hours. If you want to come out there and cover it, you're welcome to. And I called all the other newspapers and TV outlets. And then I put a little thing on Facebook and said, anybody want to join me? And I had people like Anthony Cooper, a handful of people, about 12 people came out. And we made that announcement. And it was to, one, get the attention and have my board to really become leaders. Because guess what? If you don't sign up with me, this train is moving without you. And as a board member, you got to be on board. You got to provide governance and leadership. So I just moved it. And we had great people on that board. But it wasn't the culture that I thought we should have. And the second part about that was when we knew we were going to lose, there was a conversation about should we back off? And there were different views in the table, because we already knew before that vote, December 11th, December 19, 2011, I'll never forget it. We lost 5-2, and we were like, several of us were like, nope, and I was with this team. If we lose, we make them vote against it. They got to come with something better. They got to sign, they got to show up and be real leaders now. And so what I believe, you guys, is that sometimes you have to tap into that passion and that fire in people. That, Donald Trump got elected, 3,000 students come down to the Capitol. Now, can that leadership be sustained? Those are flashpoints. But once people are passionate, my thing is there's a leader in all of us. Then that leader shows up, then sometimes we have to take a different role. We got to back off now sometimes and step behind those people because they're now at the table. So I believe you can push people to the table, but I don't really believe in bringing tables to people.
Can you hear me? There we go. So I want to follow Kaleem on that because I actually have basically the complete opposite approach. But here's why. As I mentioned earlier, there aren't many business attorneys in this entire state, right? So I have a certain skill set, I have certain attributes, I have certain knowledge that I think it's my duty to share, right? So I don't want to sit up here and give you the statistics about how many entrepreneurs of color there are and how many women entrepreneurs there are, and then there's social gaps and access to VC funding and all that. I can sit up here and give you those numbers forever, right? But here's my approach. I want to engage the audience really quickly. Can you bear with me? Can you raise your hand if you fit in one of these three categories? If you are someone in this room that feels as though they want a mentor, a professional mentor, someone that they just don't have a, great, or another one. I have a handful. Is there anyone in this room that feels as though they want to be connected to a mentor? Okay. I'm going to ask you, everyone, to raise their hands at the end. Is there anyone in this room that is in a position of leadership that feels as though they want to be connected with a mentee, someone that, is hungry and passionate? Okay. Number three, are there any people, entrepreneurs specifically, but anyone who feels as though they have a lack of access to resources, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you just need to be connected with somebody. Anyone in this room can all of you all raise your hands again? Whoever raised their hand. After this, I'm going to stand over here. Please, I literally want to give my business card to every single one of you, connect with every single one of you. I'm going to get coffee and lunch with every single one of you and do everything I possibly can to help you in every single way that I possibly can. That's the way I do things. So please, I'm serious about this. I promise you I'll do everything.
I echo everybody's perspectives. I think when it comes to the privilege of leadership, one of the things that I want to say is we're not all the same, right? So our professions are different for different age groups. So I don't think there's like one solution for everything, but I think it's we have to be innovative, we have to be creative, and trying to figure out if what hasn't worked for you, figure it out. Figure it out, literally. Figure it out and how we can help each other, how we can help the generation behind us. Like I said, I didn't have a guiding path. I didn't know this is what we need to do in order to get to where you want to be, and many of us don't know that yet, right? I'm in my 30s, and I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up, right? And I still don't know, and that's okay, right? But how do I empower, I have a little sister to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters program, and how do I empower her to be thinking about it right now? She's 13 years old. How do I empower her to be like, I can really be anything that I want, but you could also create a path of leadership. You could also create a path of mentorship. So I think we just need to be innovative. That's, I guess, my 2 cents.
All right, just a quick note, we are still collecting questions from the audience, so if you have a question, you can feel free to write it on your card or tweet it to the CapTimes, and Chris is coming around to collect those. So one audience question, how do we create a more fluid bridge between emerging and present leaders?
To me, you're always emerging, and there's a lot of the popular leaders that they're always on Facebook, they're always FaceTime living everything, right? And it always seems that you always have to be in many places at once in order to connect with these people. But you'll be surprised if you just send them an email and just say, hey, can we have coffee? How many of these leaders would be like, sure. I don't think we're not as separated as we make it sound to be. I think it just takes that one step to say, hey, you're very active. I'm still trying to find my guiding path into my career. Can we have coffee? And I would love to pick your brain. And you'd be surprised how many people would say yes. And how many people would feel very flattered that you think that they would, give some input. So.
I think that one way to bridge the gap with 2 ways is to really check ego and to check fear, right? So if you're an already established leader and you see someone coming along, recognize that this person is bringing something to the table that may be different from what you're bringing, and you're bringing something different, and that a collaboration is always better than the fear or ego, right? And the other thing is this idea, this scarcity mentality, right? It's not enough leadership spots to go around. With all these issues we have, we don't have enough folks stepping up. So
I still seek out mentors. And see, the thing of it is we don't know each other's stories, right? You see someone who's an elected alder and looks like they might have it all together, but guess what? I don't have it all together. And the added thing is that mentoring is a two-way street, because I can learn from someone who's younger than me, and then it's reciprocal. I think that you can learn from me. I love inviting people out for coffee, and that's what Amber, when she came out to pre-interview, we were at a coffee shop with 2 or 3 other people, and we were just talking and having a conversation. And so that really is what mentoring is about. When you get my age, there's a sense of that, oh, you've done it all, step out of the way. And so I look at it is that when I ran for office, I wanted to hold the door open to show women of color and women who had a passion that they've got a way in. That's what my job is. And if I can encourage someone to say, you can do it too, that is absolutely mentoring as well. I seek out mentors, right? They say, oh, why do you need a mentor? Because I want to be better. That's what I need to be better. Every day, that's my goal. Okay, I wake up this morning, how can I be better? How can I give more? Every day, that's what I wake up to do. And so when we're talking about mentoring, it is a two-way street. Their egos are too big, I'm telling you. And sometimes I'm not going to share with you because you're going to get ahead of me. No. That is not what we should be doing. Because if we are working together, I win, you win, right? Scripture says that you can't do my job and I can't do yours. That's where we got to move toward. If we are going to really make a difference. See, most people say, oh, this is a nice old lady and da-da-da, and see, that's where they've got it wrong. They don't know my story. They don't know where I've been. They don't know if it's been done. I probably have already done it, right? I just learned how to just sit and not talk about it. But when I say that we can work together, we've got to get past the names. I know Keitra said it like, can we just get rid of the titles and just be, Barbara and Keitra? Yes. That is what we need to do. I'm going to just put it out there. When you're talking about transparent, I'm transparent. I am what you see. I sit on the city council, and then I go, I want to be mentored too. I'm not 19, I'm not 20, I'm not 25, but I don't know it all. But I absolutely want to do the best job that I can do. And if you know how to share that with me, please share that with me. And the stuff that I got that I can share with you, you absolutely can have it as well. So that's how I look at mentoring.
And, I don't believe in exceptionalism. I don't think that's good for leaders to think of themselves in that light. So, when you have younger leaders, older leaders, to me, I have 38 kids in my school right now that are all leaders. Our job, as I tell our teachers, we say you got to tame kids. No, you don't. You got to channel their energy. You got to redirect their behavior. You got to do things that you can't do them like a horse. You can't break their spirit. Because I wrote a piece in the Washington Post years ago, it's 2005, and they ended up taking it out because I had written about how all of the strong leaders in the black community are killed in kindergarten, and that was the title of it. And I talked about how they were using Ritalin and all these things to drug our most fervent leaders. So those kids that you see running around your classrooms, I just had to tell a couple educators at my school this last week. I said, their job, they're 4 and 5, their job is not to sit still all day. Their job is not to listen to everything that you say. Your job is to channel, redirect, and support them in their journey, because this kid might be showing you this now, but that was me when I was 4 and 5 years old. Nobody broke me, though, because I had people around me to protect me. And so it's like, so I look at that, so I don't see it as people are at different levels of leadership. I think we're at different levels of maturity, and we're at different levels of opportunity. So I knew all the leadership jobs that I've ever had, there were those people, Howard Fuller in Milwaukee, who he was at a different level of opportunity for me, but he brought me with him. And then I was able to emerge as he didn't stand in my way intentionally. I've tried to do that for people also. You already are a leader. That's what I was always looking for. Everybody I hired, I'm like, ooh, yeah. And then you bring them to that space, and you got to sort of get out of their way. And I'm never perfect at that, but I just think same thing. So whether they're college students, like the other day, there are 3 sisters that I've met. Never before has the University of Wisconsin had student government leaders where the chair of the student government was a black young woman. The vice chair was a young black woman. They got 2 sisters, I think, representing letters and science. I was on student government. I was the only black person. So I looked at those young ladies, and I kept telling them, I thought they might think I was crazy, but I was like, seriously, I hadn't seen this before. Like, what can I do to support you in your leadership? Because they're doing it too. So I just, you guys, I just hope that, people don't see themselves in that exceptional role just because you're in the position that you're in. Because the one thing that can always happen to you, you could be out of that position too, and then who are you? Are you a leader anymore? So it's really not where you're at, it's who you are.
All right, we have a little bit over 5 minutes left for the Q&A portion of the panel. And if we don't get to your question and you submitted it, feel free to contact the panelists after this is over. But I wanted to do one more audience question and kind of combine it with one of my questions. So what do white folks need to know about leaders of color? And how can we mobilize people's anger and frustration about the lack of diverse leadership in Madison into something concrete and actionable?
I think for the population that I work with, it really is important that we stop looking at these women as charity cases. Or if you're a social worker, change the mindset from being a crisis manager to a social investor, right? These women, we often think about, if I give them a bus pass, if I give them a safe environment, then that's, I'm doing a job. But the problem is, if you're seeing these women as problems to be solved, but not as problem solvers, then you're a problem, right? I was better than a bus pass, right? So I think that along with that bus pass and whatever it is that we think that we need to give them, these women have dreams. You'll be surprised when you ask them, well, who do you want to be and what are you trying to be? You'll be surprised that they have things that they want to be other than someone to make your conscience feel a little bit better.
So my response to that is one of the things that I always, when I'm talking to my white friends, is why are you always mad, is what they say. Why are you always mad? So being mad is an emotion. Like, being mad is like when you're happy. So take that in. Like, embrace being mad. Like, if you're not mad, there's something wrong with you. You should be mad too. So I think, so be mad. And I think it's us feeling comfortable in uncomfortable situations, because as a woman of color, I am tired of being uncomfortable and having to feel awkward because you feel awkward. So feel awkward with us. Like, be mad. Just be mad, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's an emotion that we have to accept and say, yes, I'm not happy with this, and do not tell me to calm down. Do not, join my effort, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm just tired about that. So, no, I'm not mad. I'm just saying.
I'm going to jump in, and when my son was sick, he lost all of his hair, and he was bald-headed, and he said, Mom, he said, wouldn't it be great if you shaved your head and we could be twins? I go, now, if you don't know, a black woman's hair is her pride and her joy, right? But then I was at a place in my life that, I go, yeah, sure. Shaving my head was the most liberating thing that I had ever done in my life. And you know what it did is that I shed all of the expectations of this is who you gotta be, this is how you gotta look, this is how you gotta move through the world if you want to be successful. And by shaving my head, I said, you know what? I don't care if you like it or not. So, age had something to do with it too. I don't care if you like it or not. I'm a good person if you choose to get to know me. If you choose not to, that's your loss. And so when people see individuals like him, like, ooh, he is handsome because he is bald-headed. But when they see women, they go, oh, dear, I'm so sorry, right?
She was hitting on you.
Hey, let me just put that out there. I am single, but I am an elder, right? So, any single men a certain age, yes, call me. But when I went inside, when I went inside the prisons as a black female with her head shaved, that got the young men's attention. Because what that said to them is I reminded them of mothers, aunts, someone positive in their lives. And I walked in with a sense of authority. That was amazing. Men and women on the inside, if you've not worked on the inside of a prison, you have missed something. Because there is an energy there that you cannot even explain. When I go inside the prison, we talk about statistics and we talk about mass incarceration. We talk about it a lot. But when you go inside the institutions, you see it. You see young men who tell their story that they started when they were 8, 9, 10 in the juvenile system and they were just waved into adult court. Didn't finish high school. Some of them can't read. Some of them can't write. That brings you to a sense of reality. And you know what it said to me is that, I don't know how many of you knew Mike, but you can Google Mike McKinney. But I absolutely knew when I was struggling that my child would go one or two ways. He would do great things, or he would be incarcerated. There was no in-between for him. I got that. What saved him was the people that surrounded him and the mentors that we are talking about. And when I go inside the prisons, I say to them, you could be my son, but for the grace of God. I'm serious about that. Is that we forget that we can make the difference in people's lives. It's not being black or brown or blue. It is really about the values. What do we share together? The civil rights movement, if it had been a lot of black folks walking saying, we shall overcome, it wouldn't have happened. But when the Rainbow Coalition started going and joining hands, when Kaleem was coming through, it was more a rainbow of folks that came to Kaleem and said, we are going to support you. So much so that he had to take a back step because everybody else was moving in front of him. Right? Is that right?
That's how movements are formed.
That's
right.
how movements are formed. So why are we angry? We're angry, and I'm not pointing any fingers. That's why I love to sit in conversations and have coffee with people. Because if you find out what's important to me, and I find out what's important to you, we've already been able to link some arms, and we've got to do that here in Madison. Be uncomfortable. If you are not uncomfortable, then you are not making a difference.
I just want to say one quick thing. Steve Goldberg, who's I think one of our greatest leaders in Madison, he's at CUNY Mutual, he's getting ready to retire. He's done so much for this community. He said something at the school board vote when they voted on this charter school that I'll never forget. He was very brief. He took the Board of Education. He said, you know, you guys, sometimes to gain power and to gain respect, you have to be willing to give up power and give respect. And so when I say to people how do we get more leaders of color into positions of power, even I've got to be willing to give up my authority so that someone else's authority can emerge. I've got to be willing to give respect to other leaders so that I can also gain respect, but so that respect that other person can share with the rest of the world can show too. But I want to say something about what Mayor said that struck me, because this is what bothers me about this whole immigration discussion. It's somewhat related to this. How many people in the audience can trace a relative, not the sons and daughters of former slaves or Native Americans, but how many people in this audience can trace somebody back who was an immigrant in this country, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, hold your hands up high, who didn't come here with a silver spoon. They came here with an aspiration, right, with a belief that this country would be something that they could do. They could be here and make something of themselves. And in turn, I think that for the most part, these people tried to build a good country, right? Why should a person like Mayra and her parents, when did the belief and support of immigration stop? You know, so my question for people is, and Donald Trump and all these other fools, is I'm serious, if it was good for your people and your family, why can't it be good for people right now? The greatest form of leadership and mentorship is opening the doors for people and keeping those doors open for people who are just like you. So, you know, sorry, when you said that, that struck me because personally I think this is y'all's country anyway. You know what I'm saying? We're all just here. Unfortunately, half my family didn't want to be here. The other half took me here, you know. So I'm kind of confused. But, you know, I just think that as we're here talking about the leadership and mentorship issue and demonstrating that, I think that's the greatest form of leadership we can show people right now is that, you know, how we all arrive, those doors should stay open.
Thank you all. I'm going to turn the mic over to 100state, who's going to lead us through our post-talkback.
So shout out to my fellow immigrants, because we're out here. But yeah, so my name is Carlos Eduardo. I'm the arts organizer and workshop facilitator for the Making Justice program here at Madison Central Library. And so what we're going to do right now is phase into the second portion of our event, which is a breakout session. So could we have all of our facilitators please stand up, please? Great. So these are all community leaders. They're activists. They're very involved in what we're doing right now. So we've got about 9 tables. We got 4 tables in the back, 2 over here, and 3 more in the front area. So what each facilitator is going to go to a table, and if we could just get, you know, a good 10 folks, what we want to do is get feedback from you. What would you like to see happen? What are some of your ideas? Where can we build from here? So we'll take the next 45 minutes to go through a couple main questions, and then we'll meet back up here so that we can, you know, just trade thoughts. Thank you. And thank you to our panelists and to Amber for facilitating. Appreciate it.
And for those that want to connect with me, I'm going to be right here right now. All right. Come on up.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love your speeches. Amazing. Amazing.